Well, let's get into the news of the day. Joining me is LNP MP Phil Thompson. Phil, thanks for your time tonight. I want to start with the government's budget update being handed down tomorrow. There's reports it's set to include up to $25 billion in additional spending. So riddle me this. I thought we wanted to try and bring inflation down. How does $25 billion of extra spending help that? Or maybe inflation's not really a priority after all, or maybe Jim Chalmers just doesn't know what he's doing.
Well, I think you're right everywhere. It's definitely not a number one factor for this government. If you look back to the election, the number one issue for this Labor government was to go to the polls for a referendum in a divisive voice. Now it's saying, oh, the number one issue has always been inflation, but we're going to spend a lot more as well. Jim Chalmers, it's clear that he's not across his brief, doesn't really know what he's up to. And we saw today that, there'll be fact checkers out showing that he's been misleading in his comments. We know that when they run out of money, they come after yours. And they are preparing for an election. They're not focused on the inflation. They are going to spend, and it's going to put Australia in a worse position.
Yeah, I love the way Jim Chalmers is communicating this, though. And I mean, not that there's a high bar for communication when it comes to the government, but he's talking about the fact that, the deficit is going to be larger than thought. He's saying there's going to be some slippage. I just love the language. Finance Minister Katie Gallagher, she's blamed the government's extra spending on the coalition. She says it's inherited spending, funding for already established programs that the coalition didn't budget. Let's take a look at what she had to say today.
It's also the continuation of the unavoidable spending that we've inherited since coming to government. So these are often ongoing programs that had a funding cliff or had no ongoing funding attached to them. And this obviously was a feature of the former government's budgeting, where they sought to reduce costs or make it look like the budget was in better shape than it actually was.
How long have the Albanese government been in power? It's like 3 years, isn't it? At what point does the government take responsibility for things?
Well, imagine they sit in the big office. When you get the big office, you get the big responsibility. And we've heard from the Labor government and Katie Gallagher and Jim Chalmers and, Wayne Swan, who's Jim's best mate, telling the Australian people that, look how good we are, we're in budget surplus. And now going into their last budget before the election, like, oh, no, it's the coalition's fault we're going into deficit. What rubbish. Take some responsibility for your budget mismanagement. And the only reason they managed to find a surplus was because of the coal industry, the gas industry, our mining and resources, our agriculture. But instead of thanking them, they want to punish them. And instead of going, we know that people are doing it tough, they want to talk about how great they are. Now, a budget surplus does not mean that your household budget is in surplus, because it's not. People are doing it tough. Now we're going to go into a Labor deficit and they want to blame the coalition? Grow up. Take some responsibility.